Yo, you already know what time it is. Welcome back to another episode of Thinker versus Speaker, where I, Marissa the Thinker, sit down with different guests and we talk about all things, anything, everything, life, love, relationships, spirituality, literally whatever we want to talk about. So, if you're into that type of thing, strap up, tune in, let's hop into it. Now, if you're easily triggered, I will let you know right now, we will be talking about a very sensitive subject today, going down the path of this school violence, active shooter situation. So if you're sensitive to that type of thing, it's not what you want to hear about. Do what you got to do. We respect it. Hopefully you come back for the next episode. But, we want to jump into it and create a dialogue. That's what Thinker versus Speaker is about. So if you're ready for that, let's hop straight into it. I got a special guest with me today. I got my cousin who is a school administrator. To introduce you this way, it's gonna be so different. I got Dr. Talisha Kelly. Am I right?
You're right.
All right. How are you today?
I'm good. So I'm Talisha Kelly, and like she said, I'm an administrator. Been an administrator now since 2014 and loving every moment of it.
All right. So I know that, let's skip that. Let's give a background of yourself first. Tell us a little bit about like where you're from and how you got into teaching and like what drew you to that.
So I'm from the Lou, St. Louis, Missouri, the 314. And I just wanted to be a teacher from when I was a little girl. So like I would be in my room and I'd take my stuffed animals, my teddy bears, my little chalkboard, and I would set it up like it was a school and I would teach my stuffed animals. So like I knew I wanted to give back and I wanted to teach as a little kid. And probably in third grade, that was the best time for me. I had a teacher. Her name was Miss Kelly. No relation to her. She is not my mother. But I was going to school in Parkway, so it was a predominantly white school. And I was being bused with the whole program where they bust Black kids out to the white schools to get us into like the, white schools and get us better educations. So just like having her as a teacher, she was so loving. She didn't let anybody like mess with us. She took good care of us, and I just loved how she loved on us as a teacher. That's what made me want to get into it. So my first gig teaching was a third grade teacher, and I was Miss Kelly teaching third grade, just like my inspiration.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know that about you. And it's crazy that you say that, because I remember like y'all, a little background of our relationship. When I was a little kid, like I used to be like Talisha's little shadow when I was a kid. So I remember when grandma would like drop you off to go to school. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that was a pivotal part of like my little toddler life, dropping you off to school. Like, do you think being a part of that program and like not going to school like in the county where we were from, do you think that like played a part into like your perception of like education, the type of education that you got?
Yeah, most definitely, because when I left from the schools in West County and had a better education, and then I came back to a school like in the Riverview district, probably shouldn't put names out there, but I just realized like it was totally different. Like education was more fast paced. They were learning above and beyond, but the schools in the predominantly Black areas, they were behind. So like, for example, I think it was earth science when I was in 8th grade. And when I got to high school in the Black area, they were like, oh, we're going to put you in earth science. I'm like, no, I already took that. So I ended up doing like advanced classes when I got to a predominantly Black school, because I already took so much of that stuff in the white schools where they were preparing us better.
Right. It sounds like I'm gonna have to have you back for a whole different conversation. Because that's a whole nother door to walk through. Because I do feel like the types of schools that we come from definitely make a difference in our preparation for life, and just how we think and our like brain development and things like that. And I think sometimes in some of the schools that we come from, there is a bit of a disparity in how we're prepared, for the world. And I think it plays a role and how we, stand afterward. But that's a whole nother rabbit hole.
Right.
That's a whole nother rabbit hole. So okay, so like let's talk about when you started teaching, because I remember when you did. I even remember when you started teaching, like helping you like prep that classroom. I remember doing that. So like, what was it like your first couple years being a teacher? Like, was it what you expected, or was it different? How so?
Definitely wasn't what I expected. I learned that college doesn't prepare you to be a teacher. So, like basic stuff that you need to survive in the classroom, it doesn't teach you those things. You learn a lot of pediology stuff then, but you don't really learn like practical stuff. Like, for me, a kid was throwing up, and I'm like, go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. And I learned, no, don't tell that kid to go to the bathroom, bring him a trash can. Because if you tell them to go to the bathroom, you got vomit dripping all across the, entire classroom, and now everybody got to smell it.
Right.
So little things like that, they don't talk about that in school, but they teach you about content and context and all this stuff and academic vocabulary. But like to actually literally deal with, children, it's like, no, none of that's taught at all.
Yeah. And do y'all get like classroom experience when you go through school, or no? It's just like it's all books.
So I did when I went to UMSL, because that's where I did my undergrad at. And we did a semester where we just observed a teacher. And then the next entire like semester, you actually went in and you did your student teaching. So I did get like a year of time in the classroom, but only half of the time was teaching.
Okay.
But
Okay.
again,
Cool.
it doesn't teach you what you really need because that's not your classroom.
Right. It's just it's almost like, so is it getting like thrown to the wolves once you get out of college?
Yeah, you are. You're thrown into the wolves. You just got to make your own way. And that's why a lot of teachers leave after 5 years, because that's when you're going to determine if this is really for you or if it's not. So I always tell like the new teachers, if you can make it through the first 5 years and you still here, then you might have what it takes to be a teacher.
Okay. Okay. So really teaching has to be a calling.
Right. It's not something you can just walk in and say, I want to do it. However, in certain states, like anybody can be a teacher. And that's like a whole nother topic, at a later time. But
Yeah.
the state of Florida, for example, if you are a retired veteran or you were in the military, you can go in and be a teacher now, which they have no training. And I'm not knocking it, but it's certain things I feel like you need to know before you get up in front of somebody's child.
Well, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I can see what you mean. Like, I can, because one, like, as a person who, like, not only are you a teacher, you're also an administrator. So I'm sure there's like nuances when it comes to that about what it takes to be a good educator or not. And I guess from like an outsider's perspective, it's just like, oh yeah, anybody can be a teacher, but like, no, that's not necessarily true. Like, yeah.
Right. And then as a parent as well, I'm looking at it like I don't want just anybody in front of my child.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you think that the vetting process for like how do you feel about the vetting process for who gets to work in schools and not? Is there one?
I don't really think there is one.
Huh.
Yeah.
Huh. I've never thought about that before, because when you think about some professions where you have to do like like extensive like so if you want to be like a police officer or something, like like it's extensive like background checks and stuff like that, psychologists, all those types of things. But you think like when you have teachers, like teachers are working with kids on an intimate one-on-one setting on a daily basis.
I mean, they do have to do a background check technically. Like you get your fingerprints done and they run
Mm.
it through the, state database and then they go through a national database. But I know there are people who are in the industry that have backgrounds and they still work in schools.
Hmm.
So, I guess it depends on the background because it's not like, teachers aren't humans. Like there are teachers who have been arrested. I'm sure there's teachers who have been drinking and driving and gotten a DUI. I don't know. But I'm sure there are some, and you can't, tell them they can't teach anymore because they're human.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think ugh, like nuance has been like my favorite word this year, because I think that especially in this climate now, it's something that people have thrown have thrown to the wolves, and it's just like life requires a lot of nuance and analyzing things from a case by case basis. Like we talk about things in general terms all the time, and we're ready to put somebody's feet to the fire, but in reality there's so much that happens beyond the scenes and the scope. Like we don't have no room to judge anybody, but it's just like some of the questions that we have, that I think that's what's more important, is just like looking at the whole of who we are putting in front of children on a daily basis, and it's still a lot of ways that we can approach it. So it's just like, yeah, I can see why it's just like, okay, like maybe you don't need a whole, like, you know what I'm saying, like master's or something to be like a kindergarten teacher, but at the same time, like what experience do you need? Are we asking the right things? And like if we aren't putting that, you know, technical preparation behind somebody, what other things need to go with that in order to fill that gap?
Right.
So that's something interesting to think about. I never even knew that before, so thank you for that.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times students will find the information before the, actual school finds it, because the kids will go Google the teacher's name and then they'll pull up like the arrest records and stuff like that. So a lot of times they're more hip than the administrators.
That's very true.
And the people doing the hiring, So a lot of times you kind of learn as you go, and you start looking up stuff a little bit quicker before the kids get to it.
I know that's right too. And this is like so unrelated, but it's funny because that's kind of like how life works. I remember when I was working at that retail store, we had a boss, and like he was a character, but he wasn't there that long, and like everybody knows it now. It's just like he was on Dr. Phil and he was in some mess. Like he was in some mess, and it's just like, hold on, wait, like what? Like it's just like, yeah, people have some whole other lives going on, like that you won't even know about, and a quick Google search will tell you a lot.
Yes, it will. But all it's okay, because like, as a child, I remember seeing one of my teachers out in public, and I was like, oh my God, like that's Miss So-and-so, and she's wearing a mini skirt. And it's like, wait, but it's a teacher. She's a human. Like, yeah, she can wear a mini skirt, but we're used to seeing her wearing like long clothes in the building.
Yeah.
And then when I was a teacher, I had that happen to me before. I had like flip-flops on, a skirt, and a tank top, and I ran into a kid, and the kid was like, oh my God, there's Miss Kelly. She looks normal. And it's like, well, this is what our kids see us as. Like, we don't look normal in the classroom. What do we look like? So
what's that like now, being on the other side of that?
Now I kind of just don't go out in the area where I work in. So then you avoid it altogether.
Fair enough. Okay, so you made a transition from teaching to administration. What was behind that? What made you want to switch sides?
So I kind of saw how things are going in the classroom, and I knew it was something that I wanted to change. So that's more of why I got out of the classroom, because I felt like I could make a greater impact outside of the classroom. So my role at that point, I moved into a curriculum resource trainer. So I began to train new teachers. That way I could teach them things that I learned to help them be more successful when they begin to teach. So I did that for probably 4 or 5 years. And I really enjoyed that, because I was still going in the classroom, but I didn't have a classroom of my own. And in that role, I could also, be with kids and help kids and teach a lesson. Like when I got bored and I needed that little, sniff of teaching, I could go in and be like, oh, let me model real quick for you how to do this. And that's like 20, 30 minutes, and then I'm out. I don't have to be in there all day with that group, and I can go deal with another group and model or whatever. So that was kind of my whole thing, is like, how can I make a difference and make a larger impact? Because me being in a classroom, I'm only reaching who's in front of me, but being in that role where I'm teaching others, then I can teach them how to teach other kids and make a larger impact.
And do you enjoy that more?
Well, yeah, I did enjoy that more. And then I went into a different role, which I was the dean of middle school. So in that position, it's basically, like handling everything and anything, like the parent complaints, suspending the students, the teacher complaints. So that role was like a lot more difficult, and I found myself more stressed out. So I did enjoy it, but it was a lot more stress, and I gained a lot of gray hairs.
So what do you do now? What is your role now?
So currently I work as the testing coordinator and the SBT coordinator. So SBT is school-based team coordinator. That's when we identify the students who are struggling. We try to identify them in the earlier grades so that we can give them the interventions that they need. So basically, like, I make sure to, review all the data, meet with the teachers, schedule the meetings with the parents, and get the parents in, let them know, hey, this is what we're seeing. We're going to intervene. We're going to give your child, if it's reading they're struggling with, they're going to get 90 minutes of reading in the classroom. Then I'm going to have an intervention teacher pull them and give them another 30 minutes of intervention. And then their teacher's going to give them another 30 minutes of intervention, because the whole point of that is to close the gap before they get older and then they can't read, or they're still struggling to read once they get to middle and high school.
Okay.
And then I handle all the state testing. So coordinating that, making sure every kid in the building takes the test, figuring out which teachers are going to administer the test. If they, violate the test, report it to the state, that kind of stuff.
Got it. So it looks like you play a lot of different roles.
Yes, I did. And I still am. And I probably will play a lot more because it's not time to retire.
Yeah. Where do you see yourself going with it? Or is that hard to say?
The next role, I don't know. I mean, hopefully AP, assistant principal next. And then eventually principal, but also I might look into something like working for the board, for the school district or something. Mm-hmm. So, just something where I feel like I can make a larger impact, but not something that's too stressful. Because it's a lot of stress behind everything.
Absolutely. See what I get from that is just like, what I'm learning in life is to not be afraid of change, because you don't really know where life is going to lead you. You know what I'm saying? It's just like 1 minute your role might be this, and then you might fall into a little bit of that, and then it might be something else and something else and something else. And I think sometimes people fall into the trap of thinking it's just like, well, this is my purpose, I have to do one thing. And it's just like, no, like, life is kind of about forward progression. It's just like, sometimes we don't know where we're going, and not knowing where you're going is not like a bad thing. It's not saying that you have no direction. It's just like, no, like, I'm open for wherever life is leading me. So it's just like, if I want to be this today, if I want to be a podcaster today and a writer tomorrow, like, that's what life's journey is kind of like about.
Right. I was kind of in that predicament actually this school year. So the company I was with for the last 8 years, they brought in somebody that I had worked with in the past. It, wasn't the best situation. So I left and I went to a different school in October. And I was the dean of curriculum. So I was in charge of the teachers, the curriculum, observations, hiring, and all that stuff. And I found myself in an alternative school. And I knew alternative. Okay, yeah. But I didn't know to the extent what alternative meant until I actually started. And I started to see the students walking in, and they had ankle monitors on them. I had to walk through a metal detector.
It's alternative. Yeah.
And I was just like, God, why am I here? What is my purpose? What's my reason? I would question myself every day on the way to work, like, why am I here? And one day at church, the pastor spoke on it, and he was like, you might be asking God, like, why he put you in a situation, but no, it's not permanent, it's temporary, and you are there for a purpose. So when I started thinking about it that way, I was like, okay, my purpose is going to come. Then, like, one day, one of those students with an ankle monitor came to me, and he was like, can you write a letter of character to the judge for me? Because I'm going to try to get, parole and not have to go and do time. And I was like, okay. So I'm writing the letter for him. He goes to court, and like that letter and all the other letters helps him with his character to look like a better person. And then he gets his ankle monitor off and didn't go to jail. So I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And I had like another student who was, homeless and going through a lot of stuff. And she just like, started to bond with me. And I was the person that she would come talk to. So I started to see like my purpose and my reason at that school. And it made me actually enjoy it. But before that, I was like, why am I here? What am I doing?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It sounds like, sometimes things test our faith, and they require a change of perspective
Right.
in order
And that
in
definitely did. Like, that was a very humbling experience for me because it was a totally different environment. I was driving farther away for work. Like, everything was just different. And then, like I said, walking in through a metal detector every day, I was like, where am I going? Totally
what
different.
yeah, like what's in your mind when you're in situations like that, where it's like, where you're in a place where it's just like, am I safe?
Right. That was literally what I was starting to wonder some days. Am I safe? You know? Like, I was dating somebody who worked in a prison, and I was like, hey, hold on, I'm about to go through mini prison right now. Gotta, get off the phone.
Yeah.
So,
I
but
gotta go through TSA to get to work.
yeah, but it's like, it was worth it. I felt a difference. I made a difference. So,
Okay. All
yeah.
right. Well, that kind of leads me into the next question too. When we talk about security, so when we talk about like the climate in these schools now, right? There's a feeling of like, am I safe? Or I wonder, because I'm not in schools, right? And it's just like, I wonder what it's like for people who actually work in schools. Of course, when you see the news and you see like these different shootings and different situations happen every day, it's just like, what is the thoughts in your mind when you see these things happening more and more frequently now?
I mean, it's like every day you pull up, you gotta just, leave all your issues and problems in your car. You can't bring any of your thoughts or any of that into the building because you got to be focused on what's going on around you. So it's like you just got to be alert 100% of the time. And no, you don't feel safe because you don't know what's about to happen. And even though you're sitting there and you have, like, we have SROs here, which is school resource officers. And like, some schools even have security guards on top of the SROs, and some of them have actual police from the school district. Like, stuff still can pop off because kids can bring stuff in. So like, you don't know if you're safe or not. Like, every moment you're in the building, you don't know what's about to happen. Like, you
Right.
could be sitting there and then all of a sudden you hear that the school is going into a code yellow or a code red, and you may not even know why. You just know you gotta find shelter and lock yourself down.
Hmm.
And you don't even know how long you're gonna be there in that situation.
That's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy. So like, and you're saying, has it always been like that, or is this something newer?
I mean, I feel like it's recent since, like, the Columbine and the Marjorie Stone and all that stuff. Like, it's been a lot of shootings over the last couple of years. And
Yeah.
it's, just feeling more, unease. And I think it's because a lot of children have unidentified mental health issues.
Hmm.
And I think that's another show that you definitely can do. I have a friend who's a school counselor.
Let's go.
She could talk about that because I even did like some research on it too. But there's a lot of cultures where the kids have mental health issues and the families overlook them. Maybe like, oh no, they're young, they'll grow out of them. But those
Yeah.
kids don't ever grow out of them because they never get the help they truly need. And then
Mm.
those are the ones that come in and, you say one thing to them, they get upset, and it's like it sets them off. And then, as an adult, those kids. So it's like you're almost walking on eggshells because you don't know what you could say that could set that kid off at that moment. So you just got to be careful at all times.
Yeah, I do think that that's another conversation that's worth diving into, because I think that can translate. Of course, it happens in the schools, but it also, when those things aren't dealt with in childhood, it can translate into our adult lives too. I think that plays a major role in the climate of our society right now. I feel like it's a lot of people who aren't mentally stable that are walking around because we've just dismissed things as just that for so long. And it's just like, it's so many people walking around that don't know how to deal with their emotions. They aren't mentally stable. Like, you know what I'm saying? They don't know how to cope with all of these situations and circumstances it is that they're going through. And it's just like, if we're not getting it in childhood and nobody is really breaking that cycle, now it's just the norm.
Right. And that's what the norm is becoming a lot for, like, a lot of families. Like, it's scary because, you have to take everything that a child says as something serious. So, like, if a child makes a threat, you got to take that threat serious because you don't know if they're actually capable of acting it out or if they're going to act it out. Like, you just never know. And I mean, a threat could be them saying they're going to bring something to school, or it could be them saying they're going to do something to somebody in the school.
Right.
So, all those things nowadays, like, you have to take them seriously. So if a kid comes and say, hey, I heard so-and-so say they were going to do XYZ, then you got to start investigating that and see how true it is. And sometimes it's not even an opportunity to investigate. It's like, hey, we just got to put everybody on lockdown so nobody can move. Let me find this kid and let me get down to the bottom of it.
That's crazy to think about. In prepping for this episode, I was talking to my mom about it, and like, she didn't know that we went through like active shooter preparation when we were in school. And I was just like, well, we're post Columbine kids, you know what I'm saying? So there was none, and then all of a sudden after that, like 01, 02, yeah, like they had us doing like active shooter drills. And even then, like, we were kids, so we didn't necessarily take it seriously, right? Because one, I didn't know, I was too young to know what Columbine was. So I didn't know anything about it. You know what I'm saying? The adults might have known about it. All I know is that we got this new drill on top of the earthquake and the tornado drill, where they want us to either like get away from the door and just be quiet. You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
you don't take it seriously because you don't think anything is gonna happen to you. Like, you're a kid. So you don't even take it seriously. Like, even up to high school, like when we were in high school, like they have active shooter drills, and all the teacher would do is just turn the lights off and you sit at your desk till they say that you can go back to normal again. Nobody really thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
So even now, me being my age, I can't imagine what it's like now. You know what I'm saying? To be in those situations where, it feels like there might be more and more of a real possibility of something happening.
Right. So, I mean, like, now the way that we prepare students is we do a drill every month for active shooters. We do a code yellow, which is just a danger on the outside of the building. So basically limited movement, but inside. And then we do a fire drill every month. We do the tornado drill and all those things. But you have to do a drill every month for each one of those things just so they can be prepared. Because honestly, no matter how much you prep for them, you're never going to be prepared. I found myself in that situation about a year ago. We were actually in a actual code red. We were on a lockdown, and we were in the lockdown for about 2.5, 3 hours. And we had to be evacuated from our building, one classroom at a time, by the sheriff department. And then we had to be sent off to a re-evacuation facility for parents to be relocated with their children. So we practiced every month, but those drills and the practice, it didn't do anything for when the actual code red happened, because you're not prepared for it, because you don't know where that person is, where the danger is in the building. And you don't actually have the danger in the building when you're practicing. You're just practicing I'm going to go around and bang on every door and see if the kid makes a noise. That's not what happens in actual code red. You could have somebody coming through the building actively shooting. Right. And that's what's really going to happen. Ain't nobody going to be banging on the door to see if a kid's going to scream. So that doesn't really prepare them, in my, experience, to me.
Yeah, because that was my next question, is like, how is the preparation for the staff different than the preparation for the kids? Because like the kids are a whole different ball game. You know what I'm saying? Kids don't think on the same level as adults do.
Right. I mean, like, again, it depends on your role. Your practice and your preparation is going to be different, but everybody's pretty much told to go lock down somewhere, get yourself behind a closed door, and get in a hard corner. A hard corner is a corner where, they can't see in from the door. They can't see in from a window. If you have a window, like, put the shades down, even the one on the door, and just be as quiet as you can. Like, that's for anybody and everybody. If you got a desk, push that up to the door, hide behind it, whatever you can do. You know what I'm saying? But that's really the preparation you have. Even as like a principal, they have to do that same thing. They're not going to go out facing that person head on. They're going to stay themselves somewhere hidden if they're smart.
Yeah. And do you think that affects like the stress levels of like everybody, really, like the kids and the people working in schools?
Yeah, I think it definitely does. And then when one actually happens, it's like just, everybody's stressed out. And it's a long, stressful, emotional day. And, like as a parent with my child being in the same school with me, it was super hard for me because I had to stay in my work mind frame. I couldn't even think about my own kid. It was like, okay, we're on a code red. And for me, I went running to another child who I knew had medical issues versus being like, okay, let me stay put in my office and lock the door, or let me try to make it to my child. I went for another child to take her medication in case she would have, gotten sick and had a seizure during the COVID.
Right.
So I was like, let me go to her. And then once we finally like got outside, I saw my kid. I went over. I was like, are you okay? I gave my child a hug, a kiss. And then I was like, Mommy, got to get back to work. And like immediately went right back to doing what I was doing. And, that was hard. And it was very stressful.
Yeah. So can you talk about like what happened? Like just set the scene. What happened? Like one, like what were you doing before it happened, and then finding out about it?
I was sitting in my office and I think I was like typing an email, and then I heard on the walkie code red and I heard on the overhead code red. So I just immediately jumped up. I took my cell phone and my walkie and I grabbed the girl's medicine and I went to the classroom where she was at. And that's literally all I had with me was my walkie and my cell phone. Because I was thinking, oh, this is just some kind of drill or practice. This can't be real.
I was gonna say it wasn't nerves there. Like it was just like, oh well, fuck it, I'm going. Like it's just like, wait, what?
Yeah, it was like, fuck it, I need to go take her medicine because she's gonna have a seizure. And basically, I was the one who always went with her when she had seizures, took her to the hospital, stayed with her till her parents got there. She called me her second mom. So there was no thought. It was literally let me get to her. And like I said, I thought it was like a drill. I was like, oh yeah, whatever. I'll be back in my office in no time. And then, later on, I started to get text messages from my other friends and other schools like, you guys okay? I'm seeing your school on the news. You guys are in a code red. And I'm like, what? Are you serious? And then I'm hearing on the walkie now, like the sheriffs are entering the building. And I'm like, oh shit, this is real. And now I'm like, okay, how am I going to get my car keys to drive home tonight?
Yeah.
How am I going to get my debit card to buy dinner or whatever I just want to do? Like, I don't have nothing but my phone and my walkie on me. And, they came and they escorted us out the building, like one class at a time, your hands above your head. And it was like, oh, this is scary because literally every so many steps, there was a sheriff with a rifle, right there ready to draw at any time if somebody stepped out of line.
Right.
And, we got outside and like I said, they took us to a different site and we waited in a school gym till the parents got all their kids and the staff members are left at that point kind of like, okay, what do we do now? Because they're like, oh, the school, you can't go back into it. It's a crime scene. So until, we finish up looking for what we're looking for, you guys can't go back in. So we're like, well, what do we do about our keys? And they're like, you can't get them. If you don't have them on you, you can't go in. So we were kind of just screwed, just kind of like, what the hell? What the fuck? So that was a whole nother challenge. After you've had a stressful day, you've been dealing with this since 9 a.m, you haven't eaten lunch, like you basically haven't even done anything you needed to do. Now you're like, how do I get home? How do I get into my home? If you didn't have somebody at home, you were kind of screwed.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So how long did that whole process even last? Like, was it something that happened quickly, or it was like a whole drawn out?
It was a whole drawn out thing. Like I said, we went into the code red at like 9 something that morning, and we didn't get out of the building till close to 11:30, and then we had to wait for buses to take us to the other site. And then we had to wait on all the parents to come pick their kids up. We couldn't leave until the kids were home.
Right. So it didn't even click that this was like a serious situation until like the text and stuff started coming in.
Right. I just was like, oh, it's just another drill. This one's taking a little longer.
So then when it finally does click, like, oh, this is a serious situation. Well, I guess when it finally clicked that this is a serious situation, you knew that there was some level of safety, right?
Right.
Because it sounds like everybody was pretty much barricaded, and the sheriffs had like came in and did what they needed to do. So it looks like it was like a quick and I don't know, just like a quick and like necessary response to whatever situation it was at the time.
Right. We had the sheriff's department from, where I live at. We had the local police came in. Like, there were sheriffs that came from 40 something miles away. So it was a big deal because they needed the help, because they didn't know what they were really facing.
Uh-huh.
And then we have a daycare not too far away from the school. So that's kind of what made it also scary because, you don't know where the threat is and where it's going to go.
Right.
So you have a school and then a daycare right there. So that's a lot. Very scary.
Yeah. So then, like, once you realize that it was a more serious situation as a parent, like, what's going through your mind now?
Where's my child? I hope my child is okay. I hope my child's teacher, is keeping her safe and comforting her. Like, that's what's going on in my head. And then, like, once I did talk to my child, she was like, oh, yeah, mommy, it was stranger danger in the building. Like, she didn't even know what was really going on.
Yeah.
Because I think if she knew, she would have been like, I don't want to go back to school.
Yeah. So you were more stressed out than she could ever be.
Right. Absolutely. Because the threat was on the first floor where she was located, not far away from her.
Really?
And I was on the second floor, so that's what made it even more scarier.
Did you know that at the time, or you found that out after?
No, I knew at the time.
Holy shit! Like, what? Like, my mind is blown.
Yeah.
At that, I can't imagine what something like that is like.
It's not a good feeling, for sure.
Yeah, and it's not like it's anything that you can like do about it either. You have to like essentially stay where you are.
Right, you can't do nothing about it.
And like, what are your thoughts? Because even when you tell the story about like taking the medicine to the other student, like, there are real attachments to these kids that it is that y'all work with. So you know what I'm saying? Like, what is that like having that connection where it's just like, is there like, do you think that even adds like a layer of like concern?
Yeah, I mean, like, some kids you just kind of like grow that bond and connection with, like they become a part of you. There are students from my first teaching position when I taught third grade back in 2007. I still keep in touch with them. Like, some of them, when they graduated, I went to the graduations. Some of them are parents now. They're having their own babies, and I get to see that. So you build a bond with some of the students and the parents, because those are your babies during the day. Like, I try to tell teachers, don't look at it as, oh, this is just my class. No, this is your baby. These are your babies because you have to keep them safe. The parents are sending them to school with you for 8 hours a day. School is where they spend most of their time. So you got to look at it as like, that's your baby. And you got to bond with them. You got to know that kid. Like, I would know when I taught, like, okay, this kid is going to have a bad day. They didn't eat breakfast. Let me go get them a granola bar. This kid don't have soap and running water at home. Here's a bar of soap. Go to the bathroom and clean up. This kid don't have running water and a place to wash their clothes. Baby, bring your clothes in. At the end of the day, I'm going to take them home and I'm going to wash them and bring them back for you. Like, you take care of those kids. Yeah, it's deep. Those are your kids. Like, that's what took me so long to have kids. I didn't know if I wanted to have a child because I was like, these all are my kids. Like, I got 20 something kids. And then when you have multiple classes and you see multiple kids a day, it's like, damn, I got 60 something.
Yeah.
I can't do all this plus take care of my own. So, I mean, yeah, it's definitely a bond. It's, you have to, mother them and love them.
Yeah. So after a situation like that, after it's all over, once you get to go, because you said you ain't have your keys, your car. So how'd that work out for you?
So luckily for me, I knew one of the officers, and he was able to reach out to the community I live in and get me a key made, and I got a ride home through Uber because I could get an Uber with my cell phone. And once I got home, I was able to get in, and then I had to Uber back the next day as well.
So what's going through your mind that day after you go home after all of that?
Shit, fuck. What's going through my mind? I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I want for dinner. I don't know. I'm not cooking. I don't want to do shit. Like, where's the shower? Where's the wine? That's all I'm thinking. Do I even go in tomorrow? How do I know I go in tomorrow? Oh my God. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. And like, is there even, because it sounds like I don't want to say your name, it sounds like your daughter like wasn't bothered, by the situation, because I was gonna ask like what's the conversation with her like after something like that, but it sounds like she was just like, we good.
Yeah, no, she wasn't bothered at all. The next day she went back to school, no book bag, because all her stuff is locked up in there too.
Yeah.
And the day after, though, I would say it's gloomy in the school. You don't have as many kids showing up. A lot of parents kept their kids home. Mm-hmm. Those kids that were really bothered, they got to talk to counselors. We had different outside agencies reach out to us. They came in, they dropped off pamphlets for different community resources and counseling. So the community was really good about reaching out and providing resources. I think even the fire department came in with their counselors to speak to the kids if they needed to speak. So that was really nice.
Yeah. And like, were the kids like really affected? Were there like a lot of kids that were like really affected by that situation?
There were a few, and then there were a few that already had other like past traumatic experiences. So this just added on to what they already had going on. So they still needed to talk to somebody.
Got it. And like, what was it like for you the next day coming back into the school? Like, what was there nerves? Was there some uncertainty, or was it just like, this is another day?
It was another day, but I bought a little fanny pack and I kept my keys on me. And I was like, never again will I be stuck without my stuff that I need. Like, that's some BS.
So now you work with a fanny pack?
Well, yeah, for the most part. Now I have the cute little Lululemon, like, one you put across, not the fanny pack, but the other one you wear. Yeah, I upgraded. Got rid of the fanny pack.
You still gotta stay stylish. Just because you're a teacher don't mean you gotta be boring.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, cool. So like, what do you think in schools? Like, do you think there are ways that we can better prepare for situations like that? What would you change, or what do you think needs to change? Like, if you had to say.
I just feel like schools need to be more strict. Like, a lot of times they'll say, oh, we have a clear backpack policy, but they don't enforce the clear backpack policy. Some kids can get away with having a, regular backpack, or even one with the wheels on it, and those are the ones where it's like, oh, maybe the parents can't afford them, or maybe we trust this child, but you can never trust anybody too much because there can always be that uncertainty. So I feel like just, better precautions and better perimeters and guidelines, and just, better safety measures, like doing random backpack checks. Don't tell the kids we're going to search backpacks today, because schools can do that. They don't have to have a search warrant to search through a kid's stuff. Like, if they suspect something, they can search it. They could do a backpack search.
They would do that for us all the time when I was at Riverview. Yeah, that's what I hated about it.
But I feel like they need to get back to that random checks for lockers and backpacks, especially with a growing number of threats that are taking place nowadays.
Yeah.
Just gotta be more on top of it. And I feel like, having school resource officers in the school, outside of the school as well, would help, because a lot of times right now you just got one officer on the school property, and depending on the size of that officer can't really man that whole building inside and out.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good idea. Like, we have, a resource officer, and then we have 5 security guards. So I feel very safe where I'm at right now because there's so much security. It's a lot of hands-on.
Yeah, I see. And like I'm laughing. And it's just like it's not that I'm laughing because I think that it's funny. I'm laughing because I'm realizing this is like, did I go to a ghetto ass high school?
You
When
did.
I think like it's just like I really went to a ghetto ass high school, didn't I? Because it seems so normal. Like all of the things that you're saying is like this shit should not be normal. But then when you think about it, it's just like, yep, actually, I remember the days pulling up to school where the line of buses is just way longer than usual because at the school that I went to, y'all know I went to Riverview. Oh, it is what it is. So plenty of people have said it on the podcast at this point. So it will be plenty of times where we pull up to the school, right? The bus line is way longer than normal. It's already sad. We don't get dropped off in the front of the school. We don't get dropped off in the front of the school. Seniors can get dropped off at the front of the school. So they do laps. So the seniors get dropped off in the front. Then they go around the side. The sophomores get dropped off at one building. The freshmen get dropped off at another building because they don't let everybody off at the same time for whatever reason. Never thought about it. Never, you know what I'm saying? I was just like, this is childish and dumb, but whatever. Never thought about it, right? And then the days when the line was like way longer than usual, even the seniors didn't get dropped off at the front. They got dropped off at another building just like we did. And it's just like, you walking into school and it's just like, open your backpacks. Like, open your backpacks up, and they got the flashlights and the backpacks, and it's just like, I'm thinking in my head at the time, like, this shit, like, you know, like, this shit is dumb. You know what I'm saying? This shit is dumb. I'm trying to get to breakfast. Like, we already only got 15 minutes. Like, how I'm supposed to link with my friends? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, bro, like, y'all doing the whole most right now. You
but that's something that must have changed because, like, we all got off the bus in the same spot when I went there. Like, we all got dropped off in the back of the school. There wasn't no different spots for different grade levels.
We had whole protocols. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. But, you know, I mean, at a certain point, I started to drive to school anyway, so I didn't even realize that maybe. But
nah, it was probably different. It was probably different because even at that point, we were wearing color-coded uniforms.
Oh, yeah, no, we didn't wear uniforms.
Yeah, we wore color-coded uniforms. It was like, if you were a freshman, you were powder blue, sophomores were royal blue, juniors were gray, and the seniors got to wear navy blue and yellow because they wanted to be able to look at you and be able to be like, where do you need to be? Like, it was at that point because it was literally like, it was like they looked at you and it's just like, where do you need to be? Like, we used to get accosted because I was an honors kid, and the honors kids got separated from everybody, right? We were the only ones that got to have a normal experience because the freshmen had to stay with freshmen, sophomores had to stay with sophomores, and juniors and seniors got to commingle. But like everything else was kind of like split up. But if you were in honors, you were a regular student. Everybody else got babysat.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, it was nothing like that when I was there. But you know how we had those 9 buildings 2 through 9, but they called it 9 buildings?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I was just...
That's true. I never thought about that.
I just would see, like, you know, kids doing whatever when I was there. Always fights breaking out. Always people in the office. Like, one of my best friends, she was always in the office. She stayed in the office. And, you know, it would be because she got into a fight or she did something wrong. And I would see her when I would be doing my little office aide during period 2. And she'd be like...
You look like you was an office aide.
Oh, hell yeah. She'd be like, Talisha. And I'm like, you got into a fight? She'd be like, yeah. I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't know you right now. And I'll walk right out. Because we ain't finna talk. I don't know you. You get in trouble. Like, we ain't cool right now. But, like, that's my girl. Like, I love her to death. We best friends. We still cool after all these years. Like, that's a true friend, for real. But, yeah, you know, it was a lot that used to go on in those 9 buildings that didn't have one that existed. But it's still that way.
Yeah. What's the building? I think building 1 might have been our building. It was band building, I think, wasn't it?
No, I don't think so. Building 1, I thought was that empty space that was next to building 2.
Like, I thought that was the library.
No, that was the library. No, girl, it was actual space right there, just empty.
Oh, they filled it. They filled it for us. It became the library because it was new.
Oh, excuse me.
It became the library. But I was in building 9. All the honors kids were like quarantined in building 9. They tried to keep us away from everybody else in the school. And it's just like, gosh, like, oh, my school was truly ghetto. I never knew that though. Like, you know what I'm saying? I never knew that though. It's just like, but when you think about the different things that we had to go through in order to the different things that we had to go through in school, it's just like, actually some of this stuff is just not normal. Just like when I think about some of that stuff, it's just like, geez, like I didn't realize that I went to such a ghetto school. Like, I hate to call it ghetto, but I mean, like, when you think about it, if you going to school and you getting backpack checks and all of that kind of stuff, like, it's pretty rough. It's pretty rough, but it seemed normal. At the time. We thought nothing of it. And then when you were explaining some of the things that you were explaining about the safety precautions and stuff that people have to do now, it seems kind of wild, you know? Like, it seems kind of wild where it's like, you can't have a regular backpack. You got to have a clear backpack, getting random searches, things like that. It's almost like kids don't get to have that kid element, but it's almost like balancing safety and like normalcy. And it's just kind of, it almost seems kind of sad, like when you think about like what it's coming to.
Yeah, but also look at it like this, being where we went to school at, we really weren't in the safest situation. Like, the way those buildings were set up, the open courtyard, anybody could just walk in from off the street onto campus. Like, right now, when I think about that, like, that is such the unsafe environment. Like, I couldn't imagine going to school there, being a student in this day and age. Like, there's no safety and security there.
Right.
Because the buildings are so open, and then you have the buildings that connect. So it's like they could never be on a complete lockdown if needed.
No, absolutely not. Because there's just too much open space. And like, maybe that's why it got to the point where it got to, right? Where it's just like, freshmen are here, you're there, like, y'all gonna wear these shirts, where do you belong, type of situation, where it's just like they have to do these things. But it's just like, the thing that baffles me is just like, it almost, I see it as a mental health issue. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I see it as a mental health issue on a lot of levels, where it's just, it's a lot of things that need to be dealt with that don't get dealt with, because we're dealing with like the, of course you have to deal with the immediate threat, the immediate issue, right? So it's just like, if we're talking about school safety, of course, like, these things that we have to implement are important. But I think our country doesn't necessarily prioritize mental health in any type of substantial way. And I think that it also plays a part in our society, because it's just like, if nobody's taking care of or prioritizing mental health, now we're having arguments about guns and, you know what I'm saying, school safety, are people responding fast enough? And like, yeah, all of those things are true, they're relevant, they're important, but like, what are the factors that are making people more often than not start picking up these guns, going into schools? You know what I'm saying? Where it's even a situation where it's just like, where the 6-year-old shot a teacher. How is this happening?
I mean, a lot has happened since the whole COVID thing. Like, those 2 years, I guess, just kind of messed up a lot of people mentally, not having the social interactions that they used to have. And I feel like a lot of people just lost their mind and they went crazy after that, because so much has happened since then in a negative way for mental health. There are more mental health issues, you know, coming about nowadays, and kids have mental health issues at a younger and younger age. I see kids, you know, as little as 6 and 7 years old who are talking about killing themselves or shooting themselves. And the sad part is some of them actually have a plan, like they've worked it out. They talk about how they'll do it. So when you get to a kid who tells you they have a plan and they've already started thinking about it, then you have to call the mental health hospital and have that kid put under a 72-hour watch.
Right.
And like, that's a whole nother situation, because that kid, you know, either their parent takes them over, which is voluntarily, or if the parent says they're not going to take them over, then the sheriffs take them over and they put them in the back of the cop car with handcuffs on and take them to the mental hospital.
That happened to my friend in high school.
Yeah, but like if you're already having thoughts of trying to harm yourself,
right?
What do you think that's going to do to them putting them in the back of a cop car with handcuffs on?
Yeah, it's traumatizing.
Exactly. And then when they get to the place, that place is traumatizing. Because I've talked to students when they've come back and they told me like, oh, you know, you can't have your cell phone in there. You have to eat these horrible meals. You can call your parents on the phone that's there, but that's about it. And you got to go to group therapy. You got to go to sleep, wake up at a certain time. You sleep on a hard plastic bed. There's no sheets in there. Nothing you can use to hurt yourself. It's like a prison. It's like a jail for them.
Right.
So that whole situation is traumatizing.
Yeah, like I had that experience, right? And like I had a friend in high school that had some mental health issues, and this was like my best friend. I was really close to her. I cared about her a lot. And she was given some warning signs, and she was doing some things, and she was like letting us as her friends know about these things, but it was traumatizing. You know what I'm saying? The things for us, it was traumatizing because she would be cutting herself, and then she would be sending us the pictures, right? Mm-hmm. And like, we're in high school, we like, this is a problem, this is not okay or whatever. So, you know, we have the conflict of just like, so what do? Do you let her keep doing it, or do you talk to a counselor like everybody tells you to, right?
Right.
And you have some friends that like, we as the friends got together and we like, all right, we got to do something, right? Because this isn't okay and we don't want anything bad to happen to our friend. But at the same time, we don't want to be no snitches either. Like, you know what I'm saying? We don't want to snitch on you either, because we don't want to make it worse than it needs to be. But we ended up collectively being like, all right, we gonna tell the counselor because she's crying out for help, and this is the only way that we know how to get her help. And there was one friend that was like, nah, I ain't doing this. You know what I'm saying? She's just like, nah, I ain't doing it. And she has her reasons or whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it is what it is. But what wound up happening, right? Like, we tell the counselor about it. We tell the counselor about it. And like, literally that same day, because they were away, like they were doing like some other stuff. Like, you know, the type of high school I went to, you get to, some shops get to do stuff off campus or whatever like that. And that's where they were. So when she wound up coming back to school, they didn't know that we did that. The friend she was with knew that we had talked to the counselor, but like, she didn't know that we talked to a counselor. And long story short, when she ended up coming back to school, she was at the lunch table like crying, because that's the first time we saw each other was at lunch, right? And she was at the lunch table just like crying. And then she like looked at us and she was like, y'all told on me. Like, and I remember she looked at me with all the hate in her soul. Like, you know what I'm saying? Y'all told on me. And it's just like, we already didn't know what to expect, right? Mm-hmm. We didn't know what to expect, but in that same period, like, they wound up like taking her out of school. You know what I mean? Like, they took her out of school, like escorted her out in the middle of lunch type of situation. You know, and it's just like, we didn't see her for days. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's just like, me, like, I felt like the worst person ever, because I thought I was like helping, and it's like, y'all done took my friend to jail. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, y'all done said like she needs mental health help, and y'all done took her to jail, and that sent her on like a whole spiral for like years. You know, like years. So like, yes, like that kind of stuff, like, is traumatic. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I feel like if it's done the right way, it could be effective. I've had a student, like one of the students I had to do it for, she kicked, screamed, cried on her way out. But when she came back, she was like, you know, I was really mad at you when you called those people. I mean, you know that, right? And I was like, I know. And she was like, but thank you for doing it. She said, because it got me the help I needed. They gave me some medicine to help me control my feelings, and they gave me coping strategies so that I won't, you know, hurt myself anymore. Right. And I said, really? She was like, yeah. She said, so thank you for that. And I was like, you for real? And she was like, yes, I'm for real. And I was like, you don't hate me? She was like, I don't hate you, but I hate that nasty food they fed us in there. And
Yeah.
and I was like, wow, so like, I mean, I'm not going to say that makes me want to call them on those, kids all the time. But like, if
Right.
I see a child who's crying out for help and they're actually trying to hurt themselves and nobody's trying to help them at home, then yes, I am going to get them the help they need.
Mm.
But that's the worst thing, to have to do is to
Yeah.
do that.
Absolutely. And I mean, she did wind up thanking me later too, and we were able to like mend that friendship. But you know what I'm saying? Like situations like that, it's not a fun situation to be in for anybody. And I
Right.
think we don't necessarily take mental health as seriously as we could. And again, like, we don't know what's going on in the home either, because like sometimes at home they dismiss the red flags to be like, oh, you just being a kid, or you just this that. But it's just like, if the parents don't recognize the problem, of course the kids aren't going to recognize the problem. They just think they're crazy. But it's just like, we don't have certain things like coping mechanisms and outlets and things like that. Like, we don't have those types of things, like, where it's just like journaling and doing art and things like that. It's just like, where we grew up, it's like people don't necessarily do those types of things when they go home. Like, they don't know about that type of stuff. So we don't get those opportunities to do those kind of things.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not gonna take too much of your time. I don't want to spend all night talking to you, because I want you to come back so we can talk about some other things. But
Okay. And I'll definitely, get some other people to come back and talk with me, because, there's a lot of topics, especially around like mental health, that are very important. And just, I've been talking to people and letting them know, like, it's okay to get counseling. It's okay to have therapy. There's nothing wrong with you if you need to talk to somebody, because a lot of times people don't have nobody to talk to. And that's what causes them to, do the things they do, because they don't know how to get it out there. They don't have nobody to talk to.
absolutely. And that's a big reason of like why I do this right here, that it is that I do. Because I wound up, when I broke my ankle, it put me in like a depression that I couldn't pull myself out of. So like, I could get depressed, but I always knew how to pull myself out of it. So it was never like, I never saw it as a big deal, like, because like life happens and you able to like, pull yourself through. But when I broke my ankle, it was time. You know what I'm saying?
So you were dealing with what we call situational depression. You were in a situation, which is why you were depressed. But then there's people who are clinically depressed, and there is no pulling themselves out, because like hormonally they're depressed, they're off balance. So yeah, it just depends.
It's levels.
It is. It's levels to this shit.
It's absolutely levels to this shit. And a reason why I do what it is that I do, because I did go to therapy and I did end up getting a lot of the coping mechanisms and things that I need. So when I do, you know what I'm saying? Because that was one of the first things that my therapist was asking me, because she was trying to get to the root of it, right? Is this a situational depression, or do you have a deeper rooted issue? And it's just like, nah, this is situational, because you know what I'm saying, once my leg heals, I'm gonna be all right, but like right now, this is a problem, but you know what I'm saying, just being able to go to therapy and get that off my chest. Because even by not going, like, you know what I'm saying, going through situational depression, I'll be like, damn, am I like bipolar or something? Like, what's wrong? And it's just like, girl, nothing's wrong. You just need to learn how to deal with these emotions, and you need somebody to talk to that's gonna understand you. Because like, you can't always talk to family, you can't always talk to friends, you don't always feel like people are gonna understand you. Even if you can talk to family, friends, etc., like, you might feel like they don't understand you. You know what I'm saying?
And then they may be judgmental when you're like, look, I'm not talking to you for you to give me advice or to judge me. I'm just talking to you because I need to talk, or I need to vent. Like, I have to do that with my mama sometimes. But look, I'm telling you how I feel. I'm telling you what's going on. I'm not asking you to tell me what you would do in a situation. Like, don't take it negative, but like, I'm gonna make my own mind up. But right now, I just need to get this out. Like, I need to get it out. Like, it's just oozing out. I need to talk, you know? And that's just what it is sometimes.
Yeah. And like, the reason why we're here is because I want to show people, like, we can talk about these things and it be okay. There are other ways that you can go about getting the help that you need, and it's okay. So like, even if everybody else around you is judgmental and they be like, you don't need that, girl, you just need Jesus, you just need this body, like, you know what I'm saying? Oh no, you just need to go do this, that. No, like, no, like, there are other ways. There are other ways, there are other resources, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's get to a point where we're not afraid to have these conversations. Like, let's get to a point where we're not running away from these hard conversations. Let's actually talk about what's going on so we can get the help that we need in our communities. Let's introduce you to these people with these different resources and these other levels of knowledge so we can expand our brains and get some exposure to some different things, some different ways of thinking and all that kind of stuff. So that's why we're here.
Yep, makes sense. All right, well, I'm gonna get off here because I gotta get ready for Easter egg hunt in the morning. Don't want the little person to be mad. So
gotcha. I'm gonna do my outro and then we'll be out of here. So thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate you. I appreciate the conversation. You're more than welcome to come back anytime. If you all enjoyed this conversation, definitely give it a like, comment, subscribe, do all of the things. If you're looking for me on social media, you can find me at MarissaY17 on Instagram, Marissa the Thinker on YouTube and Facebook, and Thinker versus Speaker on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. You want to let people know where you are on social media? You don't have to. You don't want to.
I'm good.
Okay. And on that note, I'm not going to take up no more of your time. I appreciate you. Thank you again. And I hope y'all have a good night.
All right. Thanks. You too. Bye, everybody.